Hey y'all, it's Miss Johnson. Again, I'm sorry that I didn't give y'all enough time in groups to really wrestle with this. I know it was rushed. We'll try again on Thursday, and we'll have a little bit more time and space to work on that. Just so that it's fresh in your mind, just so that you get the answers that you want. Here are the explanations for the group work from Monday's class. So group 1 had this equation, had x squared plus 7x plus 10, and I asked you to find the x-intercepts, the y-intercept, and the vertex. The x-intercepts, the process is we factored to get x plus 5, x plus 2. We set y equal to 0 since we're trying to find the x-intercept. And then we broke these factors into two different equations, set each of them equal to 0, found our solutions. And then as our answer, we put these into point form, right? These are our x's, so they go in the first coordinate. And again, our y was 0, which is why these two back numbers are 0. The x-intercept, for the y-intercept, we do much of the same. We get x equals 0. We put 0 in for every time we see an x. We solve, we get 10. Noticing that it's always just going to be this back number because the x's are always going to go to 0. So the only thing we really care about is the c for our point. Right. And then for the vertex, the process is you find negative b over 2a. Here, our b is 7, and our a is 1. So we do negative 7 times 2 times 1 over 2 times 1 equals negative 7 over 2, which is negative 3.5. And then to find the second part of our vertex, to find the y-coordinate of our vertex, we plug in negative 3.5 to our equation. So we get negative 3.5 squared plus 7 times negative 3.5 plus 10. I put this in a calculator. I got negative 2.25. Bada bing. So those are our crucial 4 points of a parabola. If we graphed our parabola now, right, we'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 3, 4, 5, 6, something. Our x-intercepts are at these 2 points. Our y-intercept is at 10, and our vertex is at negative 3.5, negative 2.25. So our equation would end up looking something like that. And this is how we're going to start graphing parabolas. We're going to find these 4 points, we're going to put them on our graph, and we're going to connect the dots so it looks like this U parabola shape. On to group 2. I'm assuming that y'all just won't watch the other ones, so I'm just going to explain everything 4 times. Okay, group 2, y'all's equation was x squared plus 6x plus 5. In order to find the x-intercepts, we factored into x plus 5, x plus 1. We set each of these equal to 0. And when we set these equal to 0, they basically just flip, right? If it was x plus 5, it becomes x minus 5. If it was x plus 1, it becomes minus 1. And then so we find those x points. The x-intercept is when y equals 0, so the y points are both 0. And then the x points are the points we found out in this process. The y-intercept is when we plug in x equals 0. If we plugged in x equals 0 here, we get 5. And it's always, the y-intercept is always going to be our c from standard form, because these first two are always going to just equal 0 when you're plugging in 0. Again, we put the x equals 0 in the coordinate. We put the thing we found in the y-coordinate, and that's our y-intercept. For our vertex, we need to figure out what a and b are. A is always the number by x squared, b is always the number by x, and c is always the number by itself. Negative b over 2a equals negative 6 over 2 times 1, because 6 was our b and 1 was our a. We figure out that simplifies to negative 3, and that's where our x-coordinate of the vertex comes from. And to find out the y-coordinate, we do what we always do when we're trying to find a y-coordinate, which is we plug in the x to our original equation. I put that in the calculator. I got negative 4, which means our vertex is negative 3, negative 4. If I then wanted to graph this, I would put put on some tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. Right? I would just graph all these numbers. So -3, -1, 2, 3, 4, right? I would say the x-intercepts are -5 and -1. The y-intercept is +5. Bing. And then when I connect these dots in this U parabola shape, we've now graphed our quadratic. Great. Thanks, group 2. Group 3, your turn. Again, I'm assuming y'all are just skipping around, so here we are. To find the x-intercepts, the first thing we do is factor and set equal to 0. Here we wanted to find two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 8, so we got 6 and 2. We set each of these factor equal to 0, and then we put them into point form. The x-intercept is when y equals 0, which is why both of these y values are 0. And then the x values are the ones we found by this process, this -2 and -6. Cool. The y-intercept is when x equals 0. So we put in x equals 0. And then down here, we plugged in 0 for every x. These two first terms are always going to go away when we plug in a 0. So our y-intercept is actually just our c value, right? Where a is 1, b is 8, and c is 12. So when we're in standard form, we just get to read this off the back. It's pretty nice. And then for our vertex, we find out what -b over 2a is. Put the negative, our b is 8, our a is 1. We simplify, we get -4, and that's where this 4 came from. Now to find the y part of the vertex, the y coordinate of the vertex, we just plug in -4 to our equation. I plugged this in the calculator, I got -4, and that's where this -4 comes from. Now that we have our 4 main points of our quadratic, we can go ahead and graph it. We need to get up to 12. Geez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. What a beautiful graph, said no one. Okay, so now we're just going to plot these points. We're going to say for 6, we're going to say y gets up to 12. The vertex is at -4, -4. And then once we have these points, we connect the dots in the U shape, knowing that the orange is going to be the very bottom. The vertex is going to be the very bottom. And that's how we graph quadratics. For group 4. Thank you, group 3. For group 4, we are going to go through the whole thing again, right? To find the x-intercepts, we factor first, and then set each factor equal to 0, getting our two x-intercepts. X-intercept is when y equals 0, which is why both of our y coordinates have a 0. And then we put our numbers that we got from this process of finding x-intercept into our x coordinates, and those are our two x-intercepts. For our y-intercept, this is when x equals 0. So we take the original equation and plug in a 0 every time we saw an x. These first two terms go away, and our y-intercept ends up always being our c value, because we're plugging in 0 for the x stuff. And then, again, the x is 0 because we're setting x equal to 0. For the vertex, we need to find out what the a, b, and c terms of our equation are. So the first, the second, and the third number. The vertex is taking the negative version of b, dividing it by 2 times a. Here our b is 5, and our a is 1. We plug that into a calculator, we get -2.5. That's where the x-coordinate of the vertex comes from. Then the y-coordinate comes from just plugging in 2.5 to x in our original equation, plugging that into a calculator, and getting our y-coordinate. If we then wanted to use these 4 points to graph our equation, let me see, 6 is the biggest one. Nice. The way we do that is we just plot all the points. So -2 and -3, +6, and -2, -1/4, so something like this. we'd plot these 4 points and then connect the dots, making sure to use this kind of U shape. This is worse than I want it to be, but that's how it is, right? And that's how you graph quadratics. All right, y'all, again, thank you for your hard work today. I will now make the video and the assignment for this afternoon. Cheers.